You've reached Monster 911, and I'm Lance Hightower. I've been taking cryptid emergency calls for over 5 years. If you have a cryptid emergency, please call our toll-free number 866-306-8085. I can help you. What's your emergency? Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Monster 911. I'm Lance Hightower, your podcast host, cryptid therapist, as well as in-the-field investigator to the unexplainable, the terrifying, the very real presence of living and breathing monsters living in the woods all across America. And if you're not a subscriber yet, then please hit that subscribe button right now. Otherwise, you'll miss out on something you absolutely need to know and need to learn regarding these true creature encounter interviews. And if you've been witness to something that was indescribable, something that made you shake in your shoes a bit, then you really should share what happened to you or what you experienced. I understand that it can be really tough to do so, though, but I've had my own experiences, so I 100% understand. You can call me toll-free at 1-866-306-8085, 24/7, 365. I'll usually respond within 24 hours or less. Also, on a side note, many of you have been asking about our merch. Yes, I'm talking about the t-shirts that we have at our monster911.com store. We do have some other cool stuff coming, but the shirts are honestly a great buy, guys. They're really heavy cotton with a nice ink print. They're perfect for anyone in the family, and we do have a variety of colors available. So be sure and grab your t-shirts before the summer, guys. You'll love them. You'll love them. Now, when you think of a game preserve, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Perhaps an area with a lot of wildlife and natural biodiversity, right? Maybe even a woodland that's barely been touched by people and is teeming with wildlife, both big and small. But what if I told you that just like national parks, there's game preserves that are home to secretive pockets of Sasquatches and other unknown rare creatures? Would that make you think twice before hitting out there? I know it would me. Well, on tonight's episode, our guest reveals what she and a friend encountered in Texas Game Preserve while out during the daytime. Yes, daytime. The sighting gets even stranger when she explains what she thought this Bigfoot was trying to do.
When I had my sighting, it was in 2008. It was before Ike hit Texas. It was, I would say, around June, July is when this happened. Well, between May and July. It was in the summertime. And a friend and I, I had a few days off work. So I had went into Texas to visit my dad. And while I was there, a friend of mine come down from Texas. And we went into Texas to get something to eat. Well, on the way back, he wanted to stop off at the game reserve. And when you pull it off the highway onto the road that goes to the game reserve, where you're driving through a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you pass the neighborhood, you cross over this like thing, and you go into the down into the reserve. And we drove down to the end where the water was. And we got out and we were standing on a T-shaped pier. And I was watching a man and a little boy in a john boat that had come up one side of the water foliage. Well, it's a line of, I guess you'd call water lilies or something. I call them water foliage, and it was just a line of them. And they were coming up one side of the water foliage and going around and coming back up and going, made a U-turn around the water foliage and was headed back the way they were, coming from. And I actually didn't see it at first. The friend that I was with saw it before I did. And he's the one that pointed it out to me. And when I first seen it, and because of my eyesight, I thought it was actually a naked black man. And I asked him if it had any clothes on, and he said no. He says, I don't see no clothes. Now, I never got a full view of the face. The only thing I ever saw was a profile. I never actually saw the full face. And it was standing in the water, and it was standing beside a tree. And it would step out from behind the tree, and then it would go back. It would step out, and it would go back. And it did this several times. But it never looked our way at any point in time. Did it ever even acknowledge that we were on the pier? And I thought it was watching the guy and the little boy in the John boat. But then it made it was facing north. It made a left-hand turn going back south, like it was going to walk up the embankment. And when it went back toward the embankment, it put its left hand on the tree like it was pushing itself up out of the mud or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I saw the hair hanging on the arms, and you could see daylight through the hair. Mm-hmm. And it walked up like it was going toward the embankment, but then it turned back around to its left and went back toward the tree, which put me back to seeing the right side of the profile again.
Wow.
And my friend and I there was a little pathway, and we were going to walk that pathway and try to get closer to see if we could see what it was. And I am terrified of spiders. I mean, I can't stand them. And down in Texas, we call them big old banana spiders.
Yes.
And
yes, I know what you're talking about.
Oh God, those. We walked. I only got like about 4 foot or 5 foot in there, and I had to turn around and leave. All up one side, all up the top, and all the way down on the other side. It was like a canopy of these spiders.
Wow.
And I only got in there like between 3 to 5 feet, and I couldn't go no more. And I told them, I said, I can't do this. And I turned around and walked back out. And when it dawned on me what I thought I was seeing, I remember watching a movie, or not a movie, but a documentary, and I remember the name because it was so weird. I used my friend's cell phone, got the number to Mr. And I left a message on his answering machine telling him, I think I just saw a Bigfoot not 5 minutes ago. I think I saw one. But I never got a reply. I never got anything. Nothing. And then I'm not going to mention what radio station.
Sure.
But it's a Bigfoot radio station.
Okay.
I submitted my sighting to them, and they called me back and had an interview with me. And they honestly, they act like I was crazy, I think.
Really?
You know, yeah.
Why so?
Yeah. I have a condition. When I get nervous,
yes,
or when I get scared, I giggle, and then I crack jokes, and it's my way of calming me down. And I think that they thought I was some kind of a quack.
Oh.
You know, and
that's too bad.
But this was in 2008. It was the same year that Hurricane Ike hit the Texas coast.
So we're saying 11 years ago.
Yeah.
About 11 years ago. Okay. So you didn't go down this path because those banana spiders. Did your friend that was with you go down that path?
He didn't go all the way down. When I turned around and went out, he come out with me. He didn't go all the way down the path.
So by not going down the path, did you see anything cross the path in front of you or hear anything?
No. We never smelled anything either, but where we were at was like swamp water. So, you know, it could have been, what we were smelling could have been swamp water.
Yes.
Well, the other side of the swamp of the swamp water was nothing but swamp. I mean, and I think what this thing was trying to do, I think it had come over from the side where the houses were, and I think it was trying to go over to the swampy area, and because there was people around, it kind of got stranded where it was at, and it couldn't get across to the swamp.
Now, Where you saw this at in Texas, is this
It's a little community between Texas and Texas called Texas.
okay? Could you, besides this swamp area, is it acres and acres of swamp, or is it kind of dotted with swamps here and there? Can you give me a little
Well,
about the terrain?
okay, well, it's a feed off the river. I know that much.
Oh, okay. So it's probably low bottom area then.
Yeah,
Floods when it rains heavy, it all floods
yeah.
probably. Kind of.
Well, I went back to visit my again on my day a few months later after Hurricane Ike. Uh, I went back to visit my again, and I had to take me down there, and the tree that it was behind was gone.
Hmm.
So I'm assuming that the hurricane wiped it
Oh,
out.
it's possible. When you were when you were watching this creature, did you or your friend later talk about? I'm sure you did about the approximate size of this thing, and about how far were you witnessing this when you were observing this creature?
Okay, well, again, my eyesight is not real good at distance, and I'm not real good at judging distance. I would say between 60 to maybe 75 yards.
Oh wow, that's not that far away.
No, but I have really bad eyesight. Anything over 20 feet without my glasses, and it's just blurry.
Okay. Could you tell or your friend tell that was with you? It was in the water. Where did the water come on? About where was the level of the water to its
Uh,
body?
it was about upper thigh deep in the water.
Upper thigh. Okay. And I guess at this point, did your friend talk about if it was a male or female, or if it had he could see any gender?
He didn't say anything about whether it was male or female.
Okay.
And now I didn't notice any protruding because, like I said, we only saw from profile. But if it seems like if it had been a female, then you could have seen the outline of the breast, the sideways
Right.
outline of a breast, and we didn't see that, or at least he didn't make a comment that that was what he saw, assuming it was a male.
Did when you saw the profile, as well as when your friend was there, did you identify any other type of features that was noteworthy aside from you said you saw
Okay,
daylight when it was going through? You see through the hair, but
right.
the color of the hair as well as the head
Cold
shape,
black.
coal
The whole
black,
the whole thing was cold black, and it did not have a domed head. It was a head just like ours.
more rounded.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
I didn't see a neck, or if it had, it was a short neck because we didn't make out a neck, or but the hair was like all even. It all come down one side and come down the shoulder. Now he did mention that to me. He said the hair was uniformed all the way down from the side of the head all the way down.
Hmm. Did you or your friend talk about how it moved at all when it was walking through the water or coming up on the bank?
Well, now when it was walking toward the bank, it's the ends of its fingers kind of like dragged the water,
Oh,
you
really?
know.
And if you
So
said it's mid thigh coming up, then it sounds like that it's distance. See, the human, our arms, um, of course, are by our side, but they usually don't come mid thigh, right?
right,
They're somewhere just right at the waist level, which is normal for a
right.
human as far as the ratio of arm length to torso length. So it sounds like the arm length to torso ratio is very much what people describe as far as having these long, long arms. And did it wade through the water, or is it just walk fast? Did it just kind of take its
It
time?
it never brought its legs completely up out of the water. but you could see, where it would bring its legs up and take a step, and then bring the other leg up and take a step. But the legs never completely come out of the water.
It never really looked at you guys and stared.
No, it never really looked at us at all.
Okay.
I mean, it's like we wasn't even there. And this was like between 2 and 3 in the afternoon.
Wow. That is really, and this was summer. You say this was May, June.
Yeah, it was May, June, July. It was in the summer months.
Wow. So that is midday. I mean, you're talking sunshine, everything.
Yep. And when we first pulled up, there was a guy for you back your vehicle down to put the boat into the water.
Uh-huh.
Well, there was a guy sitting there in a fold-up lawn chair with a fishing pole out. And we were on a T-shaped pier, which meant at the end of the pier, he was kind of under the end of the pier, kind of,
Oh, okay.
And then the man and the boy in the John boat was on the other side, coming up the water foliage and making the U-turn and going back down the water foliage, going the way that they come from. And he was watching the guy. He was watching the man and the little boy in the John boat. Now, I can't be sure, but I think maybe that the man in the John boat might have seen it, because my friend said he looked that way. So.
But he didn't speed up in the boat that you could tell, or yell or anything like that.
No. It never made no noise or nothing. And I think it was kind of trapped. I think it wanted to go over to the swampy side, and it couldn't get over, because there was people there.
I see.
And I think that's why it went back, like it was going to go back up the embankment. And apparently it decided it didn't want to, so it turned around and come back.
Wow. Did you feel, or I wonder, sometimes we say when you see one, there may be another one in the area. Did you hear of anything else in the area, or get a sense that there might be another one around, or in your opinion?
No, I didn't get the sense or feeling that there was another one around. In fact, I wasn't even scared. I mean, it could have been also because it was daylight,
Sure.
And I was with someone. But I didn't even feel the sense of being afraid. It was just fascinating to just stand there and watch this thing,
Sure. And when things happen so fast, you really don't have time to prepare. It just depends on what kind of encounter it is. But there's a percentage of people that everything happens so fast and they're still bewildered on what they're looking at, that there's not a fear factor. And they're really taking everything in.
Yeah.
And so in this circumstance, you had people around, and you had a person with you, and it was daylight, and it was kind of in a public setting. You had a pier. It wasn't like you guys were camping in the woods.
We weren't camping in the woods.
Well,
and
go ahead.
There's a subdivision there. I mean,
really?
Where the houses back up, the backyard is basically the swamp water. And these are fine houses. These are nice brick homes.
That's very interesting you say that. I mean, there has been many of interviews we've done, and it's just coincidental it's Texas. It's been some other places too, Kentucky and Tennessee, and especially down in Florida. But you've got, the people are getting tired of the hustle and bustle of a city, and they sometimes can't afford the price of properties and lots in the city, so they go further outward, outside the metro area, because the land gets a little bit better on price, it's cheaper, and they get more acreage, and so they build these really nice homes right on the edge of timber, of natural virgin timber, and natural ponds and creeks and lakes and river systems. Well, nature goes on. It's really not going to change its habits, so to speak, and so you've got these really nice subdivisions that go in, and what we tend to call bedroom communities here. You got a collection of really nice homes. It may be even gated. Not too long ago, I was questioning a gentleman, and he lived in a community in Texas, right outside a huge metro area, and it wasn't so much a bedroom community where it was isolated, but it was a suburb. But he lived right on the
Yeah.
edge of the suburb, but his home backed up against a preserve, and so there was swamps, there was creeks and ponds, scattered natural ponds, and they were having some activity back behind his house. So these people, we always say, my brothers and I, when we're talking, is that if people only knew what is roaming around in their vicinity, in their area, day or night, it would blow their mind if they
Oh,
really
yeah.
knew. And if those people knew what you and your friends saw, and if that gentleman in that John boat saw,
Well, I can't say for sure that he saw it.
right,
My friend just said that he looked in that direction.
right, and if
You
you
know.
did see it, but knowing what you know, it's kind of like when I get these interviews and I know specific details and locations. And when I go to investigate and drive around it first, and I look and I see all these homes dotted in and around a sighting location or site, my mind goes to, if these people only knew what I know from this interview, they'd probably move. I mean,
Oh, well, now, I did notice actually that there was a few houses up for sale. So,
and you never know. I mean, we could truly speculate, but I wonder sometimes. I just what you said right there. I wonder sometimes if, in fact, you have people that move and they don't want to talk about it. They just move. They just want
yeah.
out of the house. And I often wonder. To me, they probably don't say anything, because if they did say something to the next owner, they wouldn't buy it either.
Right.
Beautiful home, great location, Bigfoot in the backyard. Please buy my home. I mean, it just doesn't work that way.
No.
And
It
so,
doesn't.
to some people, that would be a dream if you're an investigator. But most people aren't ready to see something like this. It's too shocking. It's too unbelievable. It's too scary, and rightly so. And I totally concur with them. So, after all this transpired, from the time you saw this creature to the time it left your eyes, about what was the time frame, do you think? How many
Oh,
minutes?
we probably stood there on the pier 4 or 5 minutes watching it. And then we decided to go up the path. And then when I turned around and left out and he followed me, we didn't go back on the pier. We got in the truck and left.
Did you talk about it quite a bit when you got into the truck?
Yeah, we did talk about it. And that was when it actually dawned on me at that time, what we were seeing.
Right.
And then that was when I asked to use his phone. And I called Mr. I got his number from, I don't know if you can still do it anymore. I haven't tried, but I got his number then from information.
Right. Sometimes that's kind of hard to do nowadays.
Yeah. And then, like I said, this was like 11 years ago or so.
Right.
So,
wow.
And his phone rang, his answering machine picked it up, and I left a message, but I never heard anything else. So,
Well, you never know. I mean, how people are going to behave, and this is not the first time that people have called Bigfoot organizations or associations, investigative groups. People will give them an actual real event that transpired, but they don't hear word back, or they don't believe the person, the eyewitness of what happened. And sometimes the personality of a person, everybody takes an unusual circumstance like this different. Everybody's different on how they react and how they behave. And
right.
no two people are alike. And a lot of it, is how you were raised, the circumstances, how you were raised, how you were brought up, where you grew up. All those factors in between how you're going to respond in a circumstance like this. And so, did you have, what was your thoughts prior to all this, as far as what was your belief, if you had any belief at all, on Bigfoot, as well as your friend's belief?
He didn't believe it all before this happened, and I was kind of on the fence about it. I wanted to believe it, believe in him, but I really didn't, and like I said, I was kind of on the fence about it. But that pushed me over.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, you were seeing something with eyes. I mean, in your opinion, I believe that you saw what you saw, of course. But if we try to look at this, what's the likelihood on that day that you were looking at a man in a suit standing in the water behind that tree? In your opinion, it's
slim to none.
Slim to none, just by the way it behaved. And what man is going to be at 2:00 in the afternoon that possibly could get shot, standing in the water in a big suit that's being weighted down, and it's still slim to none. I just don't know if people willing to do that, let alone go to that length of being a hoax, standing in the water.
Yeah.
You just don't see that.
No. But, it's kind of a shocker.
Well,
actually,
it is.
When you stop and actually think about it. And ever since then, I have read everything I could on them. I've watched all YouTube videos, all the Bigfoot stories on y'all's, on anything pertaining to Bigfoot.
Good. Well, and that's, these shows, they give you knowledge, and we like to share because there's a lot of people that have a problem coping after they see this. And that was kind of my next question for you is, I got your message and you were sharing that you got to get this off your chest. Since this has happened, after seeing this creature that you never really thought existed, you were on the fence, but now you're not, 11 years have passed. How did you have nightmares about it? Did it bother you not being able to really share this to anyone? I mean, how has it changed you, if it any at all?
Well, I never had nightmares about it. But I wake up in the mornings and I go to the TV and put the TV on YouTube. And I start watching all the, anything pertaining to Bigfoot. And I do this every day.
Wow.
I mean, it's like I'm obsessed with it,
yes.
And I actually, sometimes I have to stop, and I know this sounds stupid, but I have to stop and roll it all over in my mind again, exactly what I saw, because I take a tendency to want to say, well, it did this and this, when actually it didn't do this and this. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So I have to relive it in my mind's eye.
Sure.
The actual sighting. Keep it fresh, or I'll confuse it with something that was in another story. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep it fresh in my mind, exactly the way I saw it.
Well, one thing that I try to tell people to do, and you're hitting things right on the head here, is that in order to do that, and I think it's very important, number one, to talk about it, which we're doing right now. And I always say sharing is good medicine. It's good for the soul. It's good for the psyche, the mind, because when you share something, see, I don't have to question whether you saw something or not. I'm already with you. I believe you 100%. So when a person that's sharing knows that about the listener, is not trying to criticize, not trying to convince, I just want to know what happened, under what context, what you were doing, what it did, everything. And so you can fully tell your story, of course.
Well, I can tell you, I've never done drugs in my life. And I've probably been drunk maybe 6 times in my whole life. I'm not a drinker. I have never done drugs. This was not a hallucination. It was not a figment of my imagination. It was something that I actually saw. And, the other people, excuse me, the other people that I talked to, they were asking off the wall questions. You know, like how far above the knee was the hands. You know, well, I couldn't tell him that. He was standing in water.
Right.
You know, his knees was in water.
Right.
So.
Well, I think that's where you have to be a good listener. You have to listen to the story and let the people talk a little bit, and then ask questions back to the eyewitness. What do you think it was doing? What do you think? Is there any other identifiable things that you can think of at this point? So
Right.
it sounds like from what you're saying, as soon as you turn on the television, go into YouTube, if not every day, you think of it often, of this event.
Every day I wake up and I think about it, you know, and then I go and I try to do more. Well, I consider it research, you know, by listening to the other people's stories and
Yes.
and you know, their encounters, which mine wasn't terrifying. I wasn't camping and have my tent drug out from underneath me or anything like that, you know.
Right.
Mine was not a frightening encounter, and actually it was just a sighting. It wasn't an actual encounter.
Right.
You know, it didn't throw rocks at me or sticks at me or anything of that nature. You know, it just seemed like it was confused. You know, it was like it wanted to go to the swamp and it couldn't get there.
Yeah, and it sounded like it didn't even know you were there. It was preoccupied
No.
with trying to get to a location, so it didn't have a clue that you were looking at it.
Exactly.
So you got to see its response in trying to get out of there. And so it was playing. It was kind of ducking behind this tree. You said it was kind of hiding.
Yeah, it would step out from behind the tree, then it would go back behind the tree. Then it would step out behind the tree, and it would go back behind the tree. And it, like I said, it did this several times.
And again,
So,
all black. You couldn't see anything.
solid black.
Solid black. Wow. Did it, when it turned at a sideways profile, could you tell how thick was this thing? Was it, I know that's a hard question there because there's no human being, man, standing right next to it, so it's really hard to judge. But
Well, I would judge because, like I said, I only saw a profile and a shoulder. You know, I would say the shoulder looked like a football player with pads on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Is kind of what it looked like.
Okay.
And then when it made the turn to go back like it was going toward the bank, and it made that turn, then I just caught like a glimpse of the back. And the back seemed pretty wide, but it wasn't wide all the way down is the point. I mean, it was like it wasn't all one size is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
It was the back and shoulders was wider than the hips.
It was notable that you could see there was definitely a big difference. It was kind of
yeah,
yeah.
And it had to have been noticeable in order for me to be able to see it, because like I said, you know, my eyesight is really messed up, and I should have had my glasses on that day, but vanity prevented it.
Yes.
I know that sounds bad, but it did. So
No.
now I wish I'd have had my glasses on, because then I could have really got a really good look at it.
Well, did your friend did you talk about it when you got in the truck later? Some of the details, or do you still stay in contact with them, or did you go?
No, actually, we never saw each other again after that day. Okay, have you ever heard the expression, they're so tight they screw their pants legs on every morning?
Repeat that again.
They're so tight they screw their pants legs on every morning.
It's been a long time. I have heard it a long time ago. I haven't heard that.
Yes.
Gotcha.
We had went into McDonald's, and he had me and him order off the $1 menus, you know, which I got two $1 burgers and a dollar drink. you know.
Right.
And he complained about buying that. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So, after he dropped me off at home, I told him, I said, I can understand being frugal with your money. I can understand that. But don't gripe because you took a woman on a date and spent $3 on her.
At McDonald's.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness. Yeah, if you want to end a date fast, say something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
So I actually never saw him again.
Okay, I understand. If I would have taken my wife out and said the same thing, she wouldn't be my wife. I can tell you that right now.
It was kind of, I honestly couldn't believe it, because he had invited me to go to lunch. Well, lunch, I'm figuring, maybe a buffet somewheres or,
Sure.
a Mexican restaurant or something of that. No. It was the 99-cent menu at McDonald's. And I didn't mind it,
Sure.
That's not what I minded. What I minded was him complaining about it.
Yes. Wow, golly. Yeah. Who knows how, yeah, that's not a way to impress someone the first time.
No,
well,
it's not.
So you never met again, then talked about it at all.
No.
Did you, aside from this group that you called, you were saying that probably they thought that you were kind of joking about it or just kind of pulling their leg. Had you shared with this story with anyone else, family,
No.
friends, anyone else?
Family and friends, which they all tell me that, Mom, we don't believe in that. Yeah. Well, fine. I'm glad that you don't believe in it, but I know what I saw.
There you go.
Well,
and there's a lot of people like that. And, it's one of those things where here's the way I would look at it from your perspective. You're not out to convince anyone because it's too hard to convince people, especially if they haven't seen anything, right?
Right.
You're just out to, you know what you saw. You can't take back what you saw. And what I would suggest maybe is just take a simple journal and journal that moment down. Everything that you saw, everything that you did, everything that your friend that was with you said and did, and you saw the guy in the John boat. You didn't know if they saw it or not. And just write all the details of the actual sighting, what you saw that day. And that way it kind of helps in a written format as a reminder. So sometimes if you remind yourself, now what did I see? You can just write it down and go back to it. And by writing things down, it really does help as well. It's just another way to release and kind of get it off your chest, if you will, aside from us talking right now. But, you're not the only one that have seen these creatures. And unfortunately, there's more than just Bigfoot out there. And they become obsessed. At first, it is terrifying to many people. Then, as things settle down, they go from being terrified into an inquisitive state. They have questions, and then they become obsessed and trying to figure out what this is. Well, God bless you, and I want you to have a wonderful evening, and thank you again. I really appreciate you thinking of us and calling in and just opening up this personal event that's happened, that you think of it every day. I won't forget sending the shows this evening, and that way you can watch them tonight. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And I really appreciate you listening to me ramble.
No, you didn't ramble at all. It was very intriguing. It does change people's lives, as you found out. It does. So I hope this helped. And if there's anything I can do, you just let me know.
I sure will. And Mr. Lance, thank you again for letting me get this off my chest.
Oh, you're so welcome. You have a wonderful evening.
And you too.
Okay. Good night.
Bye-bye.